Hi everyone, welcome to part 4 of our Unity training tutorial. We've been creating our FPS system and our enemy AI is being implemented. Now all we need to do is implement a damage system and the ability to fire bullets. So let's get onto that right now. So let's go into our rifle and we're going to go zoom in a bit. And we want to create another empty object. And we're going to call this spawn point. This is where our bullets are going to spawn. You want to bring this up to the end, just in front of the muzzle flash. Just about there. Now let's create a cube. Now this is going to be our bullet. So we're just setting up all the different objects we need. So let's scale this down so it's about the size of the end of our barrel. Let's just scale it out a bit and that'll be perfect. And that's called bullet. Now we want to make it move forward in a playmaker, so let's call this bullet translate forward. So let's go into it, and we're going to say translate, as you can imagine, and make it Z. Let's make it go 20 spaces a second, and every frame, and we're going to say test hit object. And then we're going to say create another game object because we're going to test whatever the bullet hits. So we're going to call this test object. So let's apply the transition and let's apply this new state. We're going to call this moving forward. And then we'll call this one I hit something. I hit something. Okay. Now we're going to raycast forward. So basically a raycast is this imaginary line that is created in front of the object or to the left of the object or to up to the object. So if you go to direction, you can specify which way you want the raycast to point. So if you want +1, this is going to go in forward. So it's going to create this line going forward in the object. Alrighty. And if it hits something, we want to say test that hit object. It's going to go to here and see what it actually hit. And we want to test what object, so we're going to use this variable we just created. We're going to test the object that it hits, and we only want it to test a distance in front of it of about 0.9. And let's just turn on our debug just to test what it looks like when it's flying. And then when it hits something, we're going to go to game object compare tag. And we're going to compare the tag of the test object that it hits, and we have to create a tag for the enemy so we know when bullets hit enemies. So let's come up to enemy, go to untagged, and let's create a new tag. I'm going to call this guy enemy. Perfect. I'm going to apply it again up to enemy. So then when the bullet hits the enemy, we're going to say damage the enemy because it's hit the enemy. Or if it's false, we'll make that state and call this damage. And if it's false, we're just going to destroy the object so it doesn't just keep flying on in space. Destroy the object. And we're going to call this one destroy. Alrighty, so we'll call this destroy, come down and drop that in there, and we'll just call this destroy self, and that will kill itself. And if it's false, we want to link that to destroy, and we're going to say every frame. Perfect. So it has to make a decision every frame, so that way it doesn't get hung up. It has to either go to destroy or go to damage. And if we say damage, we're going to have to create a send event. Send event by name. That's probably the best one. And then once it's finished, we're going to send it to destroy. So once it's finished damaging the enemy, we're going to destroy the object anyway, because otherwise it's going to still keep flying on past the enemy. Alrighty. So now we need to create some sort of trigger that will fire the bullets and create the bullets. So we need to come down into our assets And let's create a quick prefab and call this bullet. Drag the bullet into the prefab, and now we have the bullet created. So that way we can instantiate it, which means just we can draw it from the memory. Alrighty, so now we want to go to our rifle, and let's. Oh no, actually. Yeah, we'll go to the rifle. Let's create the new playmaker. We're going to call this the bullet system. This is probably the best object to do it in. And we're going to say idle. And let's say get button. Oh, yeah, let's get mouse button down. I'm going to say the left button. It's just for. Well, in the future, I'll show you how to set up joysticks and stuff. So let's go here and say is firing, and transition is firing, and let's hook that up to firing, and we'll send the event, and we'll create the object at the spawn point that we made before. So pop that in there, and what we're going to spawn, we're going to spawn our bullet. So make sure you drag this prefab and not this one, because this one, once it dies, it's going to not be able to reference this in. So make sure you drag this bottom one that we just created. And let's just create a finished transition and say get mouse button up, and say finish. Actually no, let's to say to stop firing. That's gonna work a bit better than a finished event. Okay, so let's give this a quick test. Alrighty, so it's only let us spawn one. So let's have a look at what's happened. So we didn't change this, we didn't change the event over. So let's just go back and switch this to stop firing. And now it should all, there we go. So every time we put down the mouse button, it's gonna fire the bullet. Although the bullets are very slow because I can actually run past them. So we can speed up the bullets, but that way we can actually see what's happening. Alrighty, so now that we have the bullets flying, we need to set up our event that will damage the enemy. So let's go to our enemy, and we're gonna go and set up our FSM. We're gonna call this damage control. And this is gonna control all of the damage that's happening to the enemy. We're gonna set his float variable and call this health. And at the very first we're gonna say set health, because it's gonna set his health, and we're gonna go set float value, and we're gonna set the float, his health to 10. Perfect. And then we're gonna let that finish so it only happens once, and we're gonna just let it idle. And now I'm gonna show you how to create a global event. So let's call this damage enemy, and come to events, and if we create this global event, this will let us reference this this event we're gonna make from any of these other FSMs. So let's just call this to get hit, and instead of just normally going and right mouse clicking, we're going to go to the event and click this little button here, and that's going to make it a global event. So now we can right mouse click and say add global transition to get hit, and you'll notice that it's kind of like the start one. So from any other FSM, we can actually reference in this event, and it will go to it. And we're going to say in this damage the enemy, we're going to say float subtract. There we go. And we're going to say the health, let's subtract it by 1. So every time we go to hit the enemy, it's going to take 1 of his health off. So let's just make sure we can see his health in the system, so that way we can check. And that's pretty much all that's done. Now let's go back to the bullet. We're going to send the event to a game object, specify the object. It's going to be the test object that we hit. The FSM name will be damage control, I believe. You have to make sure this is spelled exactly the same, so let's just, it has to have the same uppercase and lowercase as well. So let's just completely drag that in and send the event was to get hit. Alrighty. So let's see what happens when we do this. So let me just bring this down so we can still see what's happening, and let's see if it's gonna send a hit. Okay, well, it's obviously destroying the bullet when we hit the enemy. So let's just go to the enemy and see what his health is. His health is still 10, so we're not actually reducing his health at the moment. And he pushed me off. What a smart enemy. Alright. So the bullets are not actually, what's this saying? Move forward. So the problem with this is that it's probably, the bullets aren't actually raycasting further enough. So let's make this about 1.5. That should be plenty for the bullets, and let's just make sure that the actual bullet is going to be, yeah, that should be fine. Alright, let's apply that. If whenever you change a bullet inside here, you want to make sure you also update the prefab, so just keep coming up here and saying apply, and that's going to update that for you. I jumped off. Alrighty. There we go, the health is now working. He's taken 2 damage. So now we just need to make some sort of GUI. So now it's gone down to 4, 3, and now we're gonna have 2, and then 1 and 0. Okay, now when it hits 0, we're going to want it to make the enemy die. So let's go into idle, and we're going to say test, float compare. So if the health is equal or less than, we're going to want to say kill enemy. And then once that happens, so it's equal to 0 or less than, we're going to say do that every frame. We're going to say kill the enemy, and then this one will just be destroy enemy. And in this state you can activate a ragdoll or pretty much do anything else you want. You can create a particle system that goes off for blood and stuff, but for today we're just going to make that destroy self, and that will take care of the enemy for us. Alrighty. So let's just quickly, and then the enemy died because he took enough damage. Alrighty, so in the next part, we're going to create some sort of GUI that will sit above the enemy's head and update with his current health, so that way we can actually have a representation of how much damage we've done, so we're not just kind of winging it. And we'll do some other small improvements and make the bullets fully disappear even if you don't hit anything. So we'll have to create a wait timer. But that's it for this tutorial. I hope you enjoyed watching, and I'll see you next time.